In this episode, you're going to meet Ambila. She is an inspiring woman who had stepped into her authentic and true expression through a huge career change that also impacted the rest of her life. We spent some time to really cover the ways in which we might be navigating career and life change, and what would support you in how it is that you can come into speaking your truth with courageous action whilst always feeling that sense of safety and stability. If you enjoy this, make sure you share, you like, and subscribe. Allow your heart to listen. So I am really pleased and honored to be sharing our next guest on the Speak Truth series. And this is one deeply aligned to things that I love to share and talk about, which is Ambila, who is a specialist in energy, in manifestation, and how it is that we can really step into our authentic self to really manifest your soul and what it's calling forth in this lifetime. And it's really lovely to have someone who shares that similar passion that I do of how it is that we can radiate and live in that way. And so welcome so much. And I'm going to ask the kind of my classic beginning opening question of how it is that you found yourself to sharing the work that you do now. What was that journey?
Not planned. Definitely not part of my goal setting or intentions. So it was very organic, flowing, intuitive, and in some ways guided with regards to the universe. So my background, which was planned, which was, definitely the part of normal life, university, go into corporate, get the job, high flying, all of that kind of thing. Yeah, that ticked all the boxes. That was all planned. But the intuitive part was more of I've always been interested in human behavior, in how we tick from the 360. So from the physical, the spiritual, as well as the mental. So anything and everything, even from a young age, I was always kind of reading in. And when it came to, and I was always into kind of getting readings and palmistry, and because you're just curious when you're young what the future is going to be like. Are you going to have the lifestyle thing that you think you should be having, and all of that kind of thing? So I was always interested in that. But I remember that every psychic or intuitive person I would interact with, I always thought, wow, you must be something extraordinary to, excuse me, have something which the average person doesn't. And so I and this was a subconscious thing. It wasn't like I put them on a pedestal, but I just always thought it's like you're born with it. It's not, something that we all have. So long story short, I had a major life transition, which we may talk about later on, I'm not sure. And that basically propelled me from corporate to then going, okay, now it's time to start working for myself. And when I was looking into transitioning from corporate to doing my own business, I wanted it to be in line with what my passion is, which is about, humans and stuff like that. And back then in the UK, coaching wasn't a big thing, but it was in America. So, I was looking at ways of how I could get the coaching but not realize it was coaching. And I was thinking, okay, if I do psychology, if I do counseling, if I merge the things and, all of that, and I'm thinking 10 years of wasted time to get to coaching. And then I was watching Oprah, and of course, somebody mentioned the word life coach, and then that was it. I was Googling, I was like, okay, this is it. This is exactly the skills I want, because I want that positivity. I want to help people to move forward. I don't want them to just stay in that clinical place of, pain. So this kind of ticked all the boxes. So that's where the coaching part came in. And then the intuitive part started because, with regards to my life, I moved into a place where I didn't know anybody. I didn't know a soul. I had to rebuild my whole life from scratch, my support system, everything. And I ended up moving into a city where it was the hub of all of these, I was going to say, modems. Basically, but Brighton is known for holistic. Literally every corner, there's a therapist, that there's somebody who's, tapped into the intuitive part and stuff. So my energy took me exactly where I needed to be to heal. And in that journey, I ended up meeting a tarot reader who then went, "Oh, I'm going to be doing a psychic circle. Would you like to join?" And I went, "What on earth is that?" And she said, I help people to tap into their intuition, to open up. And I was like, "Oh, why not?" I get to meet people, something interesting to do. I didn't think anything more of it. But that journey literally changed my whole life, because that journey opened me up to my intuition, opened me up to energy, opened me up to really understanding how the universe works, how we interact, and just so many more things. And but it took me another decade to merge the intuitive to the logical, because I was judging myself. So I had two separate identities, two different company names and stuff like that, because I thought if I tell people I'm coaching that I can also do this, they're going to think, "Whoa, thank you very much, bye-bye." So it took me a long time to actually come out and go, "Okay, I do this too," and then find the model that works.
Beautiful. Thank you. What comes to me in that is actually not to ask you straight away what the transition was and how you found your voice in that. I want to stop and honor the change from corporate and that intuitive, logical kind of dance, because it's something I see many people starting to, explore. And especially nowadays, it's very different, obviously, from when you transitioned from corporate.
Yeah.
Same for me. There's so much more available. People are doing more of these intuitive modalities, discovering its healing and powerful abilities. And when it unlocks a gift in them, they're like, "Oh, do I need to now do this as my job? Is this now my career?" And how do you navigate? Are you staying in corporate? Are you moving to corporate? Like that blending of what your authenticity is in navigating living in the logical world and then integrating in that intuitive self. And I'd love your share on how you did that and how you support other people with that specific, because that is finding their authenticity in that balance.
It is. And I'm going to really truncate my journey just for this sole fact that we only have a certain amount of time and it's a long journey. So with regards to me, it was very much that I had that inner knowing when I was young, that from the age of 19, I knew that I wanted my own business. So from that point of view, it was just a matter of when I felt it was going to be right. I didn't know what intuition was. I didn't know gut feeling. I didn't know all these things. I just put the word, "Yeah, I will know," kind of thing. And that's where my signal sat. So with regards to corporate, I got burnt out. I was physically ill. I had ulcers. I was stressed out. I was spending more time in the doctor's surgery than maybe sometimes doing my own work. I had so many stresses at home as well that I just kind of went, something needs to change, because if it doesn't, I don't think I'm going to be surviving. And I don't mean, to the extreme level, but just in terms of illness and stuff like that. And so for me, it was very much that I was always listening to the nudges, and I call the nudges raindrops. And then the extreme is the tsunami. when you're not listening to the raindrops, then eventually the universe will step in and go, you have no choice, left or right, and that's it. That's all we're giving you. So luckily mine kind of got to the signal of the tsunami starting, but I took the action. How I would guide others who are struggling regarding their corporate to, transitioning into something they want to do. It's very much because I am a big advocate of strategy as well as intuitive. You can't do one without the other. They're the yin and yang. So for me, it was very much that I strategized my exit. So I didn't just wake up one morning, hand in my notice and go, yay, I'm going to, make it in the world in the next 3 months and, life is going to be great. I knew that I needed to have a certain amount of income ready for me to do this transition, for me to, have that money in the bank as my support system. So anybody who is kind of getting those nudges where they're kind of wanting, and one thing I always find is that between the ages of 28 to maybe 30, 31, that's when people start to do the questioning. And some astrologer once told me, because I'm not really into the whole astrology part, but they told me that that's because all of the planets align to exactly the same positions as when we were born. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Somebody can contradict me, but that's what one person told me. So I've kind of taken that as my benchmark. So if you are in that space around about that time, and again, it could be a lot later as well, it's very much, yes, follow the intuitive, because the intuitive is probably, keeps on putting you into, or your logic keeps on putting you into jobs you're not unhappy with. You might be losing the jobs, being made redundant, and then you go back and get the same job again, but just a different company because you're not listening to the signals. So one, start to listen to the signals of, is this sitting with you and your happiness? Because money can flow from anywhere. Everybody has the skill to do any job and pay the bills. So don't use that as your excuse to, stay where you are if you're so unhappy. And then secondly, definitely strategize. Make sure you've got things in place for you to do that transition. And then thirdly, but alongside all of those, is really tapping into your gut feeling, your intuition. Marie Kondo says it so well. She's like, does it bring you joy? And that's what you need to ask yourself with regards to when you're transitioning in terms of, doing something else. Is it going to bring you joy? It's not necessarily all about the income instantly, but is it going to give you joy? Does it make you happy? Don't replace something you're unhappy with and then do something for yourself, which is also going to make you unhappy, i.e. if you were in corporate doing IT and you didn't enjoy it, don't become an IT freelance consultant for yourself, because that's not going to change just because you're your own boss. It was, tapped into what you weren't enjoying. So it comes as a package, not just, about being your own boss.
And sometimes that takes quite a lot of really, deep work to even understand what it is that you're unhappy with. Is it the IT consulting? Is it being in a corporate organization? Would just be freelancing be fine, and the skill set itself would make you happy, and it's clarifying what that is. And sometimes you do have to repeat a few jobs to get that clarity and really understand what it is that's not working. And I think we can be really hard on ourselves in that process of, I'm making loads of mistakes, I'm getting this wrong, like, and we can judge ourselves quite harshly in that process. And so there's also a big dose of kindness that comes with really 100%. Trying to narrow and pinpoint what it is that...
And it's been the same with me. I didn't just fall into, what I'm doing now, exactly the same. Hence why I said the 10-year of joining the logical and corporate, the logic and spiritual together. Because again, 100%, it's always a work in progress of navigating, because one of the fundamental parts of being your authentic self is that it's all about your own inner personal growth. It's not just about the actions you're taking. It's so much more about the inner foundations you're creating for yourself in terms of getting to know yourself, in terms of healing, in terms of letting go of so much crap that no longer serves you. So it's a combination of so many things as you're navigating that you're also dealing with, and then trying to keep that seesaw balance, while still kind of surviving in this world.
And so that brings me to ask you about, in that navigating, unraveling the beliefs and the conditioning that you may have in that process. So for you, when you were unraveling that, very wonderful box ticking process of having moved into corporate, what was the conditioning that you had to unravel in that process for yourself?
Well, one of the major things was the you can only have one. Being an Asian, being a British Asian, maybe it's, my conditioning, or maybe conditioning of that era of, job for life, or one thing for life, or, one relationship and one soulmate and one this and one that. That restricted me and my income for so long, because I had multiple passions. Before I went, okay, no, I'm going all in on my, passion, the coaching, I had other businesses. And I closed them up because I didn't believe and trust that I could keep doing that, but also keep building and thriving in my coaching business. So I would definitely say to people relating to income, if they are transitioning or have left corporate and are doing it all themselves, do not feel guilty in having multiple incomes, multiple sources. If it makes you happy, if it brings you joy, if it keeps you flowing and allowing you to do what you want to be doing and growing, then why not? So I let go of my tarot business, only to then, have to rebuild it when it was thriving, and turning away people because I just felt, no, coaching is the thing that I'm meant to be doing in this world. And now then all of a sudden you're like, well, actually, I love that too. So it's very much about my conditioning very much was letting go of you can only have one. And that was a game changer for me when I had that realization, and then realizing how much I had been holding myself back and how much the universe had been guiding me, but I had kept on shutting the door on the universe. The other thing about conditioning was my own judgment of me. And I did not realize that. Where I believed that if I came out and told people that I had these intuitive abilities, or I was building them, or, I could do certain things and stuff like that, I immediately felt doors would be slammed on my face. Then in 2017, my elder sister passed away. And there was just something, it makes you assess life and stuff. But there was something around that time that just said to me, I have nothing to lose. Who cares? I literally just had that kind of, what's the worst that's going to happen? So, as you do at that time, I broadcast it on Facebook. Hey, everybody, I have these abilities and I can do this and I can also do that. And this is what my business is. All of the people I thought who were going to judge me, and that was the support system, that was the people I grew up with who knew me from a child. Every single one of them went, oh my God, this is amazing. We did not know. Wow, this is so amazing. And I was like, it's me. I've been judging me. I've been the one who stopped me Nobody else cared. So it was also learning to what degree I had been doing that. And again, on both parts, it's limiting beliefs on both parts. It's things that are stopping me and keeping me in my comfort zone. I mean, even with a corporate job, I had stayed in that job for far more years than I should have done because I was staying in my comfort zone. So yeah, so I would definitely say those were the two major life-changing aha moments when they came.
They're big beliefs, and they're great ones to have shifted. And I can see how many people, I mean, maybe not the newer generation moving through, don't necessarily have the one job for a lifetime. And I remember that pressure too. You know, and especially you have to move jobs every 3 years is so detrimental for your career, and all these terrible things and disasters are going to happen to you.
And how are you going to climb up the career ladder and get to directorship and CEO and stuff if you leave the company?
No, and it is a way to just limit yourself, just to put that cap on anything and everything that's going to be possible completely. And it also reminds me of, when someone is transitioning to make a shift like that, often, the marketing is you need to have a niche. And when you don't know who you are, or when you're someone who has lots of gifts and lots of skills and you don't want to be pigeonholed, that feels really uncomfortable to be told that you have to make that pigeonhole for yourself. It feels so limiting, and you might be subconsciously doing what you were doing, which is closing everything down. And what I found, and I tried doing kind of multiple YouTube channels so that YouTube would not, dislike my yoga nidras and the fact that I was doing spiritual entrepreneur business work. Those two can't sit in the same channel. And everyone would tell me, every person, you can't do that. And I was just like, I tried it. I was like, it's just a lot of work. I'm really tired. That doesn't fulfill me. But if I just do it the way that I do it, it works. And then what I do is, to me, there's the niche comes into when someone's interested in something specific, then I'm focused. This is where there's a focus of this interest. But not everything I do has to be just in a sole interest. And it's taking yourself away from a niche doesn't mean you have to narrow into one thing. It just means that when you're talking to someone, you focus on the thing they're most interested in.
Yes, and exactly. And sorry,
I was just going to say that's human connection, right? It's like what's relevant to you.
Exactly. And one thing I learned about a niche is that people kind of, again, it's the pigeonholing that I was just talking about, the one. Because that's what a niche is. You can only have one. Yet, and I'm like, I don't want just one. Because, okay, take it, my interpretation of a niche for me is I have a niche with regards to what I want to do, which is that predominantly my passion focus, the number of hours I want to be spending and stuff is to do with my coaching and, the spiritual work. But then I have other passions which are also bringing me income, which are not my niche, but I still love doing them. And so therefore, I can still 100% enjoy, make money from it, put it out to the world, but then focus on the niche of what's really making me passionate. So do it as it works for you. I've always found that you're going to have these experts. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Tony Robbins. He is the, godfather of coaching. And yes, the niche is there. I think for a lot of people, unless you want to be getting to that level of, expertise, being, the Deepak Chopras, being the Robin Sharmas or, Mel Robbins and all of those great people, then you don't need a niche. For a person who is just enjoying what they want to be doing and serving the people in the way that they want to be serving them and creating a lifestyle that works for them, regardless of, what cap of income you want to put into it, that's individual. I'm learning the more that I'm navigating through my life and coaching people and stuff, that you know what, that's a good living, that's a good purpose.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I love that. I feel like we're speaking to that there is an energetic shift of the polymath, of like someone who is a specialized in anything they choose to tend themselves to. And you said it earlier on, we can do anything. You can get a job and learn it and work at it, and make a living from it. And it may be the thing that makes you shine the most, and it may not be. And if you want to enjoy a variety, like, it's great. Make a life of being the polymath and embrace that, and don't limit yourself in how it is that you find that authentic self, because that is your voice, that is you expressing yourself in this world. And that's what is that authentic expression, is that I have multiple faces. Like, every person I speak to is a different me that comes out, because they bring out that new face. And so I'm allowing my authentic expression to really live by honoring that I don't need to make it one thing. And if that's going to become your career, honoring yourself that you can have multiple voices. But also, if you are someone who's like, no, I have my one message, and that's what I say, and I repeat it, awesome as well. Like, that's great. Both work.
Exactly. And the whole thing about being authentic is very much that the people who need to hear your message will hear it, just like with regards to this podcast, and just with regards to me, in particular, because you put out so many wonderful ones, that anybody who needs to hear the message that we're talking about will pick this particular podcast and go, oh, okay, I heard it. But it's very much regarding that people connect to authentic people. People connect to and learn from, and maybe get the nuggets or messages or anything from people who are being authentic. And again, you don't need to be on a stage. You don't need to be talking on a podcast. It could be just two friends having coffee. But if you've been struggling and all of a sudden, they give you a nugget of something and you're like, yeah, I really needed to hear that. So because that person was being authentic at that time, they were being, in that space. And that's basically what it's about. It's about connection, as you've just mentioned, with people, and not necessarily all the bells and whistles of, I need to be this, and I need to behave this way, and I need to dress this way, and I need to do this, and I need to speak this way, and all of the I's, because that's ego.
Right. And when you have that running dialogue in the back of your head that's going, should I say this? Oh, they might interpret this. And if I say, the following, when I said that last time, it didn't quite work right. We over practice our elevator pitch or whatever it is. That's the thing I hated. It's so inauthentic, right? And it stinks and you feel it. But it's whether you've practiced it or whether that inner dialogue is predominant in that conversation of, what are you doing? Where are you going? When you have, I don't know if you have it when a client's in that transition and they don't know what to say about what they're doing with their life. How do they describe themselves? What stage of life are you at? What are you doing? There's a lot of awkwardness about what are the right words to make other people feel comfortable. And, when we do that, we're losing, again, authentic connection, because there's too much I involved of worrying about how it's going to be received. And a little bit like your share on Facebook, right? It's, if you don't do it, sometimes it might fall flat. Sometimes if someone does turn around and go, you're a weirdo, I don't want to talk to you. Great, you've just saved yourself a conversation.
Exactly. And you've saved yourself an energy and a connection that was not going to be serving you anyway. So, but 100%.
And so a question I would like to just circle back to in your journey, because obviously there was the burnout, and it sounds like there was a lot of other things that went with the burnout of your life that you'd built, probably similar to my shedding of many things in that short space of time, that as those things were unraveling and you were finding that new voice, and there was that trust of a few core things, it sounds like, about the steps to take, I just wanted to come back to that inner authentic voice and how you found that to step away from the conditioning that you were living in. How did you approach those conversations with the people that it was going to impact?
Okay, so sorry, I was going into my coaching while I was doing the my life, span, because at that time I didn't know, I didn't have these skills, I didn't have this toolbox to be able to go, okay, that's what's going on, and that's what's going on, and that's what I need to be doing, and stuff like that. To me, it was one emotional, stressful mess of having so many. So, very briefly, in a paragraph, British Asian woman, grew up in an era where women's roles were second to a man. You're just there to get married, breed, and shut up. and if your husband allows it, then you might have a career. So, that's the era I grew up in. And I always had that strong inner voice ever since I was young. And I'm going to do the Oprah kind of thing. Ever since I was 5 or 6, I knew. So I always had that strong inner voice in me, knowing that my life is going to be far more greater than just, being a wife, a, mother, not that I didn't want to be all those things, but just fitting into a very tight cultural box. So, being a British Asian, you're meant to be married by 25, breeding by 26, and and that's it. So I had all of those restrictions, and then the flip side was that I was having this magnificent corporate job where I was succeeding, I was high flying, I was me. And then at home, I needed to be fitting into this, tight box. So with regards to going back to your question, how did I navigate it? With great difficulty. It was a 7-year transition because the human in me was trying to make myself fit, was trying to keep other people happy, was trying to keep the balance, was trying to navigate the bullying and the emotional blackmail and the guilt and everything else which was being thrown at me, not just from my own family but society and culturally, because I was defying what the norm was. I was the one who was the Matrix. I can't remember if it's a blue pill or the red pill, but I took the pill that was putting me out of the box. And people didn't like it because they couldn't then relate and understand me. And then, it was like, what do you mean you're coming out of the box? We don't know how to, react or be, or, that's not normal. So, but yes, it was a 7-year transition of raindrops turning into thunderous showers and everything, with me really trying so hard to fit in. And of course, my family will have a flip side of their story. So, arrogant, overconfident, all of that kind of thing as I was being perceived. And it just got to a head, the tsunami, which was that I needed to take myself out of that toxic environment, which was my family, which was my support system, which were all the people I grew up with, and put myself into a new environment just so I could heal. So how did I navigate it? In this day and age, it's so much easier because you have therapists, you have the internet, you have so much information you can tap into. The generation of parents are probably our generation who have learned and grown, and because we were the middle transition, from the war era to the new era. And so having those kinds of conversations was not the norm. Every time I tried to have a voice, it was literally closed down because I didn't have one voice. I had 7 voices shutting me down because I wasn't allowed. And if I did, then it was finger pointing of how dare you speak up to us? How dare you do this and everything? So it was not easy. But now, completely different era, because now it is about communicating, but also understanding that you are the one who creates your life. you are the one that teaches people how to treat you. So it's all about your boundaries, regardless of friends, family, whoever they may be. It's about creating that confidence, and it's not an overnight process. Trust me, I know. But creating that confidence to kind of go, you know what, I've got nothing to lose. And again, I love Marie Kondo. If it's not bringing you joy, then really question it. And don't be afraid to speak up, because what's the worst that will happen to your life? Because we survive it and we move on and we heal, and new people, and we open the doors to new people and new ways of being.
And it is that adventure, right? That opening yourself to an adventure, right? Rather than staying.
Exactly, because it's pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. My family's way of keeping me guilty was, where is she going to go? She doesn't have another home. Where is she going to go? And I'm like, well, I can go to a hotel. I can go and rent an apartment. I can, but that's what they used to think, that she doesn't have another home to go to. So where is she going to go? And that was constantly thrown at me. And I think it's people, in some cases, keeping themselves in their comfort zone because they're afraid of what the next step will be and how they will survive. But this is where the manifesting work and the universe is always there guiding us. And there's always a plan, there's always a survival. And if you're just trust it and believe in yourself far more than maybe the universe, which incidentally is you anyway, you will know that actually all you need to do is take the next step. It's not the 10, it's not the 600, it's not the 6,000, it's just that next one step. And then the next day, take the next one step until you get back into that flow of believing in yourself.
It reminds me what you've shared of, so for me, it was my acupuncturist in London saw me after I'd been re-triggered from my brain injury and I was a mess. And he just looked so, I've never saw him look so worried. And that was the first time he said, some things can't be healed when you stay in the same place. And he, for months, kept telling me about all these things I could do if I left England. And that was the key, was I had to leave England. You know, it wasn't, you know, the support that I had, you know, they'd helped me when I was too sick to work and that I needed people to help me eat and like cook and things. But it was interesting that when I was well enough, you know, the healing was I had to leave the country, all of what I had as my foundation for my life. And
because you had to create that distance.
I needed that distance. I needed that space and I needed a fresh start. And what was interesting was I also couldn't, so in terms of that speaking your truth, I couldn't tell anyone I was leaving because I knew everyone would say, what are you going to do? What's your plan? How are you going to finance yourself? You know, I left England, £1,500 and my dad had bought me a ticket for a holiday at Christmas. And I just said, can I contact the airline and change my flight? I'm going to stay and do a little extra yoga teacher training. And then I just kept extending my flight and didn't go back. And I just found ways, you know, the universe did exactly that. I had no plan other than to stay for that yoga training course. And every time I tried to make a plan, I got more sick. And so I knew that that was a sign. When I got sick, that was the sign. Don't stop. That's not going to bring you joy. Right. And so I just stopped. And what the universe did was put me in a 5-star resort to teach yoga to millionaires. And it was amazing. And I got fed so well and I got so cared for. And it was a phenomenal experience. And that's what happens when you do that. You trust and you say, I'm going to let support find me. And I'm going to let myself just trust that I know the yes when it shows up.
Exactly. But in doing and waiting for that yes, you were also taking the action to put yourself into those places and take on the opportunities when they came. So action is fundamental because I think people get so absorbed in the manifestation of we need to think it, we need to visualize it, I'll meditate it, I'll do this. And it's like, no, but you need to take the action, because without that, you're not really stepping forward. You're just seeing the steps, but you're not stepping forward. And that's the, fundamental part of the journey.
And I felt like for me, a key part was the taking the steps that were the ones that brought me joy, even though
Yes.
it was scary, right? It was not listening to those past beliefs, acknowledge when those beliefs came up, trying to say to me, oh, don't do that, or, whatever it was in my head, you don't have enough money, this isn't sensible, like, come on, Nid, you need to have a plan. What are you going to do when you, manage your budget every day? And if I did that, it didn't help me. Whereas that taking the step of being, oh, someone says that we're going to go and do something. Okay, I'll go along because that feels good. And if it didn't feel good, I didn't go. And that was okay. It didn't, but following the steps because it felt a bit scary, but good.
Yes.
To me, that was the key and it definitely came with the edge of scary, for sure.
Yes. Exactly, because each step is pushing you a little bit more out of your comfort zone and into uncertainty. And that is something as human beings we do not like. We like that certainty. We like to know that on Saturday we're going to be doing this, rather than actually, you know what, I'll just fall out of bed on Saturday and see what I want to do.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And I love that because it ties back in, I think, also to that journey of how you may transition, if it's appropriate, out of a certain type of career and into other types of work. It's still that same process, right? It's a bit scary and you have to trust each step that you're taking and refine where those beliefs are that are holding you back, which ones are real and which ones, and I think that especially in the early stages of those changes, we can get caught between what's courage and what those old limiting belief patterns are, and we can get confused between those two. And so I'd love you just to touch on that as part of that navigating. Tricky one.
It's not tricky. I'm just thinking of the words. It's because it's like a two-stage thing of trying to decipher where the belief came from. And I think that's the hardest part, especially when you're trying to do it yourself, in deciphering, is this something that came to me when I was 5 years old? Or is this something that has come to me in adulthood? And or my environment, or something like that. So how do I then know how to let go of it? My transitioning, when I was asking all of those kinds of questions and stuff, and ongoing, still do, it is very much that I would 100% say that if you can, to lessen the length of time is work with an expert. Because an expert will know the plan of the journey to, one, help and support you, but also ask you the questions that you don't think about. Second is great sources on the internet. So tap into that, tap into journaling. Because the first thing, or the first step, is you to become aware of it. There's no point in saying I have limiting beliefs. We all have that, but you need to become aware of what those limiting beliefs are. And the way to do that I find, is tapping into your inner self. So journaling is one of the most powerful ways to do that. And I'm a pen to paper gal rather than typing or voice when it comes to tapping into my inner self. Because when you're doing that, you are actually stopping yourself from all of that kind of speed thing, and you're having to really think about the words that you're writing. And I think writing skill is one of the things that we're losing in this lifetime, because everything now is tap, tap, tap. And that stops your brain in terms of having to really think. And it's the slowness that really then starts to tap into your intuition and that inner voice that's coming in. So definitely first step is having the awareness. Second step is, once you have that awareness, it's changing the behavior, the mindset, or something that's going to undo that, because it's a habit. It's ingrained in our subconscious, so we don't even realize it's a program that's playing. Like, we get up, we brush our teeth, it's the first thing we do. It is programmed in. But if we think about it, why are we brushing our teeth? When did we stop asking that question? Why are we brushing our teeth? What are the benefits of brushing our teeth? Do I really need to brush my teeth? And do I need to brush it at this time of day? Or can I do it at this time of day? Those would have been the questions we asked when we started learning that behavior. But we've forgotten. So those are the questions then you then start asking regarding this limiting belief. It served me when it was protecting me and keeping me safe. But is it serving me now when I want to be moving forward in my life, when I want to be creating something new? And that's the level of transition you kind of keep on stepping into in order to move yourself forward. Did any of it make sense?
It's beautiful. And there's two things just definitely popped up. So there is a video in this series that I've done on journaling for that awareness and to bring those aspects of what was a past truth and now what will be your current truth, and this is the thing, when it comes to speaking your truth, like, is that the truth of a belief that you once had, that once served you, and what would now be a truth to take forwards of where you are in the life that you're living and the vision that you have of who you really are and who you're becoming. And so that I think is really important. And the other piece that came through is, as Brené Brown says, when you write, when you journal, it goes from the head through the heart. And that's where you get that beautiful, intuitive and soulfully aligned resonance in what you journal if you handwrite rather than using the tapping, because of that process that it takes us through emotionally and physically. And so I'm fully with you in terms of that being a really key part of the process of how we can unravel ourselves from what can hold us back in moving forwards and finding that courage of who you want to step into. And yes, definitely get support, get guidance in that process, because it makes such a difference to not do it alone.
And journaling is your best friend. People have a stigma regarding journaling. What if somebody comes across my journal and, oh my God, they're going to find, and it's like, who cares?
Well, but it's also really helpful for reflection, I find. So, I learned that I will be psychically receiving endless messages. And it could be like a year and a half. My average pace of receiving a message is about 18 months before I really go, oh, I should go do that. Like, that's what I've learned in watching my journaling. And it got faster over the years, as obviously I learned to identify things faster. But it was really interesting seeing that process in my journaling of how consistent the messages are. Sorry.
And also, because one of the other things I learned regarding my journaling is the amount of repeat patterns I have. The amount of times I've written the same thing in my journal again and again and again and again. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm bored of reading it. Why the hell am I allowing my thought process to, keep on saying those things and doing those things when I'm kind of reading and I'm fed up of it? So it's very much, it really teaches you the conditioning of your mindset, because it's bringing the subconscious to the conscious, and you don't actually realize it until you're rereading it and going, oh shit, okay,
yeah, exactly.
That needs to change, because I can't be this anymore.
And I think that's the difference of like journaling as a teenager, where you just journal, I fancy so-and-so, I hate so-and-so, we had a fight at school. That's a very different journaling to the kind of journaling we're talking about that is bringing awareness to what you're processing and seeing the patterns and using journaling as a self-reflective tool to unravel those patterns and that conditioning, and also identify where there is guidance and how it is supporting you and showing you the actions to take.
something I just wanted to share with anybody who might be listening to this and stuff is that, again, wonderful internet and stuff. Anybody who's struggling to start with journaling or kind of thinks, oh my God, I've got to go so deep so soon, or thinking, what types of questions is it that I should be asking myself? Honestly, just use Google. Find the question.
ChatGPT nowadays.
Yeah, ChatGPT, forget Google now. Just go to ChatGPT, Google, find those questions. Find what it is that's going to help. Because sometimes half of the struggle is that keeps us again in our comfort zone is that we're like, I don't know what questions to ask. I don't know how I'm going to get this information out of me. So so don't use that as a block. There's help there. Just take the action.
And one of my favorite things, and this is the lawyer in me for sure, that likes to phrase it like this, is the type of questions that we ask ourselves. So is it a closed or an open question? Is that straightforward? Is it a closed question where it really limits the answer? Or is it an open question that opens your mind to not find an answer, to not say there's only one thing, but just starts to create a spiral of thought that keeps allowing you to go deeper into the possibilities that are beyond what you're currently thinking? And that is, to me, one of the key shifts is the kinds of questions that we're asking ourselves.
And it's like unplugging that blockage, that once it starts to flow, then so does what your subconscious, your intuition, you're ready to let go of. Then that flow will also start. And again, as you mentioned, that's when you get your inner guidance. Also, the messages that you need to hear, the messages that have been dormant within you for so long, begin to kind of come out.
Yeah. Wonderful. I'm so grateful for this conversation. Thank you so much. I feel like it's going to support a lot of people who listen to this podcast. I know who often contact me with those kind of questions around this. So thank you so much for such open shares and great tips and guidance. Is there anything that you'd like to share in closing, whether it's more about your work, if there's anything that you'd like people to know about you and something we haven't covered?
Well, firstly, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been wonderful to have this flowing conversation. And I do trust that anybody who needs to hear any of our messages will definitely tap into it. With regards to closing, I will say to anybody who's in this journey, regardless of if it's beginning, middle, or, coming to the end of the tunnel and stuff, is the magic words that you said: be kind to yourself. We are, all of the things that we've spoken about with regards to our mindset, with regards to the blocks, with regards to everything, is a work in progress. And as you up level in terms of your personal growth, so do the fears and everything else. So just because you've shed one skin, like a snake, you're going to be shedding more skins. And it's understanding that. So be kind to yourself, that this is a lifelong journey, not just I'll do it 1 year and it's all sorted journey. Secondly, one thing I would love to share with people who are into manifesting or looking into manifesting is that I have a free downloadable guide, which is 7 reasons why manifesting isn't working for you. But then it also flips in terms of what you need to do. So that's on my website, and I think you may have the link to that as well, so people can download that for free. Exactly. And but honestly, this has been wonderful. I'm very open to anybody contacting me and wanting to know more about me and my journey. And follow me on my YouTube channel, because I do actually a lot of readings. It's more intuitive and spiritual work on my YouTube channel, whereas Instagram is a mixture of both. Follow me. And the easiest way to follow me is just find my name, Google it, and everything comes up.
We'll put the links below as well, just to make it easy for everyone else. So we'll make sure that is simple. Because I know everyone, like, path of least resistance, don't want to have to go doing too much searching around. So
Exactly. I'm just one click away then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We like one clicks. Thank you so much for your time and for your open share. It's been a real honor to have this time and just to enjoy this conversation. I love it so much. It's a real delight for me, and always brings out something new. So thank you ever so much. And yeah, definitely go out and check out Ambila's YouTube channel. Enjoy the videos, and yeah, we all love, like, YouTube channels. One of the favorite things are psychic readings. So guys, go and enjoy. Thank you, love.
Yeah. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Ambila. In our next episode, we're going to be jumping into using essential oils to support us with more empathic and compassionate communication. So discover how essential oils can support you move through and process, but also step up and into different ways of communicating from your most beautiful, radiant self. Thank you for joining. Have a wonderful day.